Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Victory, and today I'll be sharing with you 10 tips that will definitely help you get a band 9 in your IElts speaking test, just like I got. The first time I wrote IELTS, I didn't prepare as I felt that I have very good command of the English language. So I just booked and wrote my first IELTS exam in October 2018, and this was my result. Speaking 8, 7.5 in reading, 8.5 in listening, and 6.5 in writing. I felt it was not as good as I expected, and so this time I prepared for 3 months and booked a second IELTS exam, which I wrote on the 1st of December. And this was my result: speaking 9, reading 9, listening 8.5, and writing 7. It is a great result. Oh, yes. These tips are the summary of how I got a band 9 in speaking. Tip number 1: be calm. Although English may not be your first language, but you speak English every day with friends and family and even strangers. So see the examiner as a stranger with whom you are about to have series of discussion. It is very important that you remain calm and composed. Nervous students tend to make more mistakes, have poor pronunciation, and speak very quietly. Nervousness affects your fluency. So be yourself, be at ease, and let the discussion flow naturally. Enjoy the chat with the examiner. Make sure you arrive early to the exam center. If you are late, you will be even more nervous and flustered. So ensure you have a good night's rest, wake up bright and early, and go to your exam center. When you arrive early, you are able to compose yourself, have a chat with other people that came for the exam, and be able to quietly and composedly go through your registration process in preparation for your interview. Tip number 2: speak spontaneously and do not memorize answers. Spontaneity will make you sound more natural. Memorizing scripts is the best way to get a band 0, and you do not want a band 0. Examiners are trained to spot rehearsed or memorized answers, so do not memorize answers and just speak like a robot and hope you're asked the questions you memorized the answers. So instead of spending time memorizing possible answers to possible questions, you should focus on developing your speaking skills so that you'll be able to respond to any situation in the IELTS exam or in life in general. Tip number 3: listen carefully to the question. If you did not hear the question or you think you might have misunderstood something, simply ask for clarification like, "Excuse me, could you please repeat that? I didn't hear you. I didn't quite hear you." You should not, however, abuse this rule and ask the examiner to repeat every word or every question. This is not allowed and clearly shows that you do not have a good command of the English language. So listen carefully to the question to know which question requires first an affirmative or a no before you continue. For example, if you're asked, "Do you have children?" you cannot say, "I do not have children." You must first say, "No, I do not have children." So you must listen carefully to the question to know which questions require a yes or no first before you respond. Tip number 4: speak at a moderate pace. Many people ask me if they should speak fast or slow in their IElts speaking test. Some people think that if they speak more quickly, they'll get a better result. I think that speaking too fast might make the examiner not hear you properly and might affect your fluency and your clarity. So keep a steady pace and you will be just fine. Avoid speaking too slowly because the examiner might get lost in what you're trying to say. And alternatively, do not speak very fast so you do not lose your coherence, like I said. So you must keep a steady pace, just like I am keeping now, an even pace when you are talking. Extend your answers. Avoid correcting yourself more than once or twice. This is a flag. They see it as a red flag that you cannot quite express yourself properly, and keep a logical order to what you're saying. You cannot go from A to Z or from A to Q. You can keep a logical order A to B, gradually making your points. Tip number 5, be creative and thoughtful. Lots of students complain that they can't think of any good idea in the speaking test. Part 1 of the speaking test is about you, so you don't really need time to think of the answer to the questions about yourself. In part 2, you'll be given time to prepare for the answer. You're given a cue card with the question, and you're given a minute or two, mostly a minute, to write down your thoughts, which will form your answers. So, again, don't worry too much about part 2, but part 3, however, is the part students tend to fear the most because the questions are more challenging and it can take a few moments to think of a good answer. This is totally natural and it is something you probably do all the time, even in your native language. The important thing is to let the examiner know you need a few moments to think by saying something like, that's a tricky question. Let me think for a moment. Or you can say, that's an interesting question. Let me think about it. Or you can say, I don't really know for sure, but I think that, and then you make your point. This is important that you use it, you use this technique just once when you absolutely have to. If you begin every sentence like, oh, let me think about it, oh, I think difficult, the examiner will think that you have memorized the answers and give you a band 0. Remember, that it is not a test of your ability to understand and communicate in English. Let me rephrase that. Remember that the IElts speaking is a test of your ability to understand and communicate in English and not a test of your personal experience and knowledge about the question asked. This is where most people fail. They say, I don't know anything about what she asked me, but where is your imagination? This is where make, you think creatively, bringing out answers that are clear and constructive. You can think of your experience relating to the topic. And if you do not have any, then make up details as you speak and say your ideas with confidence and showcase your language skills. You're not judged based on your like or dislikes, but based on how you express your thoughts with clarity. For example, if the examiner asks you, tell me about a foreign country that you have traveled to. If you haven't traveled to any foreign country, you can say, I have not had the privilege and opportunity to travel to any foreign country. I have lived in my country all my life so far. But if I were to travel to a foreign country, let me see, I really love Paris. In Paris, I love the opera. I love the bright and beautiful cities. So I would love to visit Paris and go to all the tourist centers, all the tourist attractions, and hopefully pick up one or two French language. You see, I am having this discussion creatively because I have never been to Paris, but at least I know I have a general knowledge that Paris, they speak French, Paris is beautiful, and so I make general comments about Paris, even though I have never been to Paris. So that's how you become creative with what you're asked. Instead of keeping quiet or being flustered, I don't know what to say. When you keep quiet, you lose points and you probably not make a band 8. Tip number 6. Speak until you're asked the next question. Giving short answers to the question and silently waiting for the next question reduces your mark as it indicates your command of the language is limited. Just like tip number 5 says, be creative. In being creative, it helps you to extend your your answers. It helps you to extend your answers and keep expanding on it until the next question comes. So avoid repeating yourself, avoid long pauses, and keep creatively expanding on what you have said. For example, if the examiner asks you, which village are you from? A bad answer, the name of my village is Odumodu. This answer is too short and I've given the examiner minimum amount of information possible. And if you give such an answer, it means you will keep quiet and wait for the next question, which is bad. A good answer is something like, the name of my village is Odumodu. It is a semi-developed settlement in Nokwa, in a Idemili South local government, and this is in the eastern part of Nigeria. The major occupation of the villagers is rice farming. My village is known as the best rice farming city or village in the east. The houses in my village are modern brick houses built by villagers who live in the urban city. While you're expanding on it, the examiner would have either stopped you or asked you the next question. With this answer, this student not only answered the question but also explained further and given deeper information. Before I continue with the remaining tips, I would like to ask that if you are enjoying and learning from this video, please click on the like button, give it a thumbs up, and share with your friends and anyone that you may know that will find this video useful. Do not forget to subscribe and also click on the notification bell so that anytime I upload other informative videos, you'll be the first to know. If this is your first time of coming to my channel, I am very grateful that you are here and thank you so much for listening to my video. You're welcome. Now to continue with the tips, tip number 7, avoid using slangs and bogus words. The IElts test is supposed to represent a normal conversation between two people, and you should therefore not use overly formal language. You should not use slangs or anything too informal either. Just plain spoken English is perfect. Listen to how native speakers talk to each other, native English speakers, how they speak with each other. You will really hear them use anything too formal or too bogus. They just communicate in plain English. So having some big words in your repertoire of knowledge doesn't mean that you must throw it in a conversation. Before you can use any word, you must be sure to understand the context and the right usage of the word. Otherwise, when you throw in big words in the wrong context, you only expose yourself to have poor command of English and not understand the proper usage of the English words. Tip number 8, clean up your diction. Most times, people repeat the same word or phrase so many times in a conversation that it becomes a distraction. In speaking to some students whom I coached, I hear words like, you know, I mean, as in, or, So those are distractive words, distractive feelers. Someone would make a sentence, I am cooking, I like this thing, That becomes a distraction when you keep repeating the same word in a short sentence. So you need to consciously clean up the way you communicate. Instead of using those distractive what I mean. Instead of using those words that are distractive, you need to consciously clean up the way you communicate and instead introduce short pauses. In formal speaking, it is common, it is acceptable, and it's appropriate and sounds natural. It is natural to pause while you form your thoughts. Native English speakers do this all the time. In fact, pausing is much, much, much better than saying, okay. If you are finding difficult to speak clearly what you are thinking, give a short pause and think it quickly and then make your sentence clearly. Secondly, the other way to help yourself and communicate clearly, clean up your diction, is to use natural fillers. Native English speakers do not speak fluidly without any pause or any filler phrase. So do not expect yourself to do more than even the native English speakers. Instead of saying rely on more natural filler such as like, you know. However, you cannot use the same phrase over and over and over as though you are working on a clutches and because it will lower your fluency score. There is no filler, even the natural ones, that you should use over and over and over. It's okay to use it, for example, in the beginning of a sentence, you can say, well, I think. When you use that in the beginning, that's a natural filler while you collect your thoughts. You can also use, I mean, what I mean is, this is a filler that is useful for clarifying your idea and leading into more specific support for your answer. Whatever filler you want to use, make sure you do not use it more than twice so that it doesn't sound so distractive and repetitive. Tip number 9. There is nothing wrong with your idea. A lot of people think that the best way to get a high mark in their IElts speaking test is to simply adopt or form a British or American accent. This is a really bad way to prepare for your exam. You do not have to form an accent. English is a truly global language and it is spoken in thousands of different accents. So be proud of where you're coming from and the accent you have. A lot of Nigerians want to have adopt this foreign accent. You know what I mean? You know who I am. You know where I'm coming from and speaking English. That's just wrong. You do not have any guarantee of getting a high IELTS score by adopting an accent that is not your native accent. It is better that you pronounce properly, you speak clearly, and remember, good pronunciation is not about your accent, but it is better that you pronounce clearly and properly and you are understood than to try to adopt an accent that is not yours and thereby sounding strange and irritating, and this might affect how the examiner understands what you say. Finally, tip number 10, improve your pronunciation. On the back of tip number 9 of speaking properly, not adopting a foreign accent, it is important that you improve your pronunciation. You can improve your pronunciation of the English word using variety of resources which is available on the internet. I would also be giving you links to two very useful, very useful pronunciation learning tool. One is the British Council Phonemic Chart. This British Council Phonemic Chart helps the student to hear the sounds of the English word by clicking on the symbols that make up the English word. So when you click on the symbol, you can hear sample of words that include that sound. I will put the link on the bio. Then the second tool is the Cambridge Dictionary, the Cambridge Online Dictionary. The problem with English is that it's not a phonetic language. This means that the spelling and sound of some are often different. Spelling and sound of different words are often different. So think about the word through and out. They must be very confusing the first time someone hears it, but because you don't spell it as it is said. But it is important that you learn pronunciations. For example, I'm going to type in the word repertoire, which I used in an earlier tip. Repertoire on the Cambridge Online Dictionary, I type in the word and it will pronounce it.
Repertoire.
See?
Repertoire.
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 So in doing this, and then you can also put in another word, pronunciation. Pronunciation. You see, once you see a word or any word you want to use, by putting it into any of those tools, it gives you the proper pronunciation of the word, which when you speak, you can be heard by everybody. Thank you so much for listening. With these 10 tips, I am so sure that you would get a band 8, a band 7, 8, or 9, depending on what you want. And by continuously practicing speaking clearly, speaking properly, and pronouncing properly, you would definitely make a better band score than what you have been making. Thank you so much for listening. And finally, by watching this video to the end, you have shown that you are prepared to work hard, and so you're therefore already ahead of most people who write IELTS tests. So have confidence in yourself. Take enough time to prepare before you book and go and write an exam. Well done, and thank you so much for listening. Once again, if this video was informative and very helpful, I'm sure it was, please click on the like button and subscribe to my channel for more helpful videos. Till the next time, my name is still Victory.